Hey, yo, it's Des. So I'm back with another video. So on this one, I want to go over just a few things. Um, let's talk first about Gabriel. Anyways, yeah. So since he signed that contract for me, I feel like he's been having a good season since then. He's been playing really well. We've not seen any mistakes since then. I think he's played maybe 4 or 5 games since signing the contract, and we're yet to see any mistakes from him. As I've always said about him, for me, he's a player who's got great ability. He's still a young player, a young player for defender as well. He's got so much quality in terms of being able to defend by himself, winning duels in the air, on the ground. He's very good in the opposition's box. He's good in our box as well. Very physical player. He can play in isolated situation. He can play 1v1. Comes out to win the ball early. He's very proactive defender. Can play in a high line because there's not that many defenders that can play in such a high line and play in physical situations and play in 1v1 situations as well. But he's able to do all these things. He has all the physical qualities as well as the defensive nuance as well. But the thing that he was making mistakes at was in the big games. He was making these mistakes, and I said before when these were happening, what my feeling was that he plays with a lot of emotion, a lot of passion, and he feels like he wants it too much, or he's trying to prove a point. He's just so involved in a game that he ends up losing concentration and his composure, and then that leads to mistakes. But since he signed that contract, maybe that's kind of calmed him down, relaxed him a bit. I don't want to jinx anything, but since then I haven't seen any mistakes from him at the moment. He's been playing really well, no mistakes. Played a Chelsea game, played really well again, no mistakes there as well. So for me, he's a fantastic defender, and he's just showing it even more. Just like I was, all I'm gonna say is just give him a bit more credit. Just get when because when he's making mistakes, everyone was talking. Now that he's not making any mistakes and he's just performing, just give him his credit. The next person I want to talk about is Martin Odegaard. This guy, I love his ability on the ball. I love the way he can play make. I love for me he's a very intelligent player. He's a leader as well. It's just that he's not a very vocal leader, but he's like it reminds me of like Fabregas when he was leading the team as well. Just a leader by someone who leads by showing you the way. This is how Fabregas used to do as well. And what he see with him, the fact that he also presses as well. So it's not like he's leaving his teammates to press. He's the first one to go and press there with Gabriel Jesus up top. The team see what he's doing and they follow ahead. When we're defending, he drops back to defend as well. When we're pressing high up, he's pressing high up as well. And then when we're trying to build up play, he doesn't just stay in the final third waiting to receive the ball. He drops deep and he links play. So for me, I've said this before. There's different kind of like tens or playmakers or however you want to say that. There's playmakers who are more like midfielders where they're involved in creating play, build up play and stuff like that. And then you've got the kind of final ball players, the kind of like De Bruyne's and the Bruno Fernandes, them kind of guys who they're more focused on the final action. Madison is another one like that, where they're really in the deep areas trying to help build up play, but they mainly just in the final third relying on final actions. With Odegaard, for me, he seems more of the type who's just really involved in midfield play. He seems more like a midfielder than a forward, just very involved in the build-up play, involved in the pressing, involved in everything that goes on in terms of being able to dominate a game and sustain possession and sustain an attack. But where he's lacking at the moment is just the final action. We need to see more from him in that final ball. We need to see him be a bit more aggressive. Even when you look at the Chelsea game, for example, I feel like the game was there to be won. I mean, we won the game, yeah, but the game was there to be finished off in that opportunity where he got to score the second goal. And if that was any other player, the likes of Bruno, the likes of De Bruyne, the likes of Madison, those guys are taking a proper shot on target there, or they're finding Martinelli there. But he just seems to hesitate a little bit with these kind of things. When it comes to the final action, he's not quick with the trigger. He's not, you know what I mean? He's just a bit too hesitant in with the final actions. We need to see more of that because he's a bit too passive in when he gets to the final third. But when it comes to building up play, supporting his teammates, playing little 1-2s, combination plays, helping us to dominate the ball, he's very active in those areas defensively and in possession. It's just the attacking wise that he's not so active in that sense, and we need to see more from him. Another thing I'll mention again is obviously the Carabao Cup. We're out. We lost to Brighton 3-1. Me personally, well, and for a lot of people, I know no one's really, we're not too bothered about it in that sense. For me, I'm not too concerned about the Carabao Cup. I think someone mentioned that all of the leagues have cancelled that kind of, or all of the leagues have got rid of that extra League Cup game, or whatever you want to call it, in their leagues, and they only have one league cup or one cup that they all perform for, and that's basically for us. That's the FA Cup. And in Germany they have the Pokal. Is it Pokal? I can't remember what it's called. But anyways, in Germany they have their own as well. But every league has just one main trophy. Well, one main domestic cup. We have two. So I don't really see the sense in it. For me, I've always seen it more as like something where you just put in like the young players, the youth players to perform in. But right now, I feel like our depth isn't that great for us to even be using that anyways, or like we need to also, like, because we're trying to go for the title as well, and we've got the Europa League, so we can play those players in the Europa League rather than having to play them in the domestic cups. Plus, we're having to play Celebre in this tournament as well. You know what I mean? So if we're having to play first team players when we don't have enough players or enough depth, then for me it doesn't make any sense to even be in that competition anyways, because it's only just allowing us to play an extra game for our first team players. And I feel like there's going to be some fixture congestion after the World Cup as well, so it's a bit tricky in that sense where we're having to play extra games for no reason. So I'll rather not even be in the cup. I'm not too concerned about that. The main thing I'm concerned about when it comes to that is that it's just the fact that when you think about our depth, for example, when you think about our first 11, after the first 11 there, we've only got maybe one or two players that we can possibly rely on who are at a good level. So those players will be someone like Kieran Tierney and someone like Smith Rowe. So when you think about it like that, when you think we're playing basically playing with just 12 players. So let's say, for example, when you look at the back line, the only reliable defender we can think of as a backup is probably Tomiyasu, which is one, and Kieran Tierney, that's two. So then you go into midfield and you think about what midfielders can we rely on, because Lokonga hasn't been performing really well at the moment. El Nini is someone who can stabilise a team, but he's not really like, that kind of level of a player. Then in attack, you've got Nketiah. So that then gives you what? Four players that we can rely on. We can rely on Kieran Tierney, we can rely on Tomiyasu, we can rely on Nketiah. That's three players. And I could say probably Smith Rowe as well, which will make it four. But the problem with Smith Rowe is that he's rarely ever fit anyway, so he's not really someone who's available for us to rely on. So that makes it three. So basically we're playing with a squad of 14 players that we can rely on. The rest of them haven't performed. Lokonga hasn't performed. Onini is not at the level. Nelson can do things here and there, but that's not a player that you can rely on. The same goes with Marquinhos. And then the same goes with Fabio Vieira, who we brought in as well. We still need to see a lot more from him, because what we saw from highlights and videos as well, and all that sort of things before he came here, we're not seeing that. So there's still a lot, like in terms of our squad depth, there's a lot that can be improved in that sense. I think when we go into the January transfer window, we do need to try and address that as well. As I say all the time, we need to add more depth to the squad, because our depth at the moment is not that great at all. But yeah, anyways, that's me. I just want to talk about a few things before the game on the weekend. But see you guys after the game on the weekend.